It actually is all about how we are to look after the world, really, which is what we always do with Scouts. But when this opportunity came along to present a very nice badge to the Scouts when they eventually get through the projects, which are 17 of them, we found that it was following the same path that we actually take with our Scouts: teaching, learning, valuing, and being aware of their part of how much they can do to keep a healthy world.
Yes, we decided to challenge the sections of the Scouts in different ways. So the Beavers and the Cubs have to choose 2 of the 17 goals to explore, and the Scouts and Explorers do 3 goals, and they have to complete 1 activity of each of these in order to earn the badge.
Could you give an example of a goal?
Well, the goals are the global goals that are listed on the UNESCO website. So there's no poverty, good health and well-being, quality education, life on land, life under the water, and so forth.
And how do they transfer that into the island community?
Well, we came up with various suggestions as to possible projects. Obviously, the sections can choose their own activity, which they think is relevant, but we gave them some sort of ideas for each of the different goals. So, for example, the no poverty, one of the suggestions we had was donate what you don't use. So the different sections could collect together, for example, books and toys and games, and give them to a local charity shop, that sort of thing. If we had, say, for example, the Zero Hunger, they could do some fundraising and donate the proceeds to a charity such as the food bank. Or maybe, again, they could grow their own food within the different sections. So the Beavers might grow cress and the Cubs might grow potatoes and then make sandwiches or cook chips or something at their actual meetings.
And how long does it take to achieve this badge for them?
Well, that will depend upon how often they work towards it. Basically, they're working towards 2 of the goals, so it will be incorporated at some point within the programme for the different sections.
For instance, one of the groups is doing climate change, or climate action rather, where they are to do recycling. So they have used plastic bottles to turn into excuse me, into bird feeders. We have been to the waste disposal so that they can see that the rubbish collected in houses is recycled into actually 10% of electricity for the island. We are also in the process of having 2 cars to look at, one of which is diesel and petrol, and the other one is electric, to see how the difference it makes to the atmosphere, which is a great lesson, which they obviously enjoy because they get the chance to also work on the cars, like checking the water, the windscreens and everything else. And that also gives them a chance to get the mechanic's badge. So besides the Biosphere badge for the projects they do on this particular climate action, they can also get the Scout badges when working alongside the same projects.
Well, that must be quite exciting for Scouts, getting, 2 for the price of 1 kind of thing.
Yes. Well, of course, we also were doing sustainable city communities, which is all about cleaning up spaces, and you hear a lot about how the Scouts are clearing up the beaches and parks and planting trees, generally keeping the area clean, but donating something back into the community with their energies of planting and cleaning. And it's a great project which they actually seem to enjoy, because it's outdoors, of course, which we all enjoy.
Sorry, I thought you wanted to say something. What's the story behind introducing the badge? Was there a particular reason why you chose to introduce it?
What's the story behind? Sorry?
Why did you choose to introduce this badge to
Those
Scouts?
particular two. Well, it was put out to the groups, and then the groups would come back and say what they wanted to do. And these two seemed to be very popular. One of the other groups was very good on life below water. They took the beavers, which are 6 to 8 year olds, and they produced a really good program and covered the life below water very well. I'm finding that the more they're getting to know about this program and what's on offer, it can be varied by the leaders, and these were just suggestions that Bev and I put forward so that they wouldn't sort of be trying to think, well, how are we going to do that? And it's been picked up very well. I think the fact the badge is so attractive, which also helps them, gives them incentive to work to see who's going to get it first.
Are there badges like this in the UK, or is it just on the Isle of Man?
Well, this is obviously specific to the Isle of Man because it's the UNESCO Biosphere, which obviously we know that the island is a special place. So I'm not aware of anything similar in the UK at all.
That must be quite an amazing feeling, thinking we're the only, Scout group in the world to have this opportunity.
Yes, I think the island seems to come out on a very high rate of success when it comes to environment. The air is cleaner than most other places. The water is pretty good. And generally we're a cleaner living community here because we care so much about everything, and the idea is to make sure that our younger generations are knowledgeable and care as much as we've all been doing. And certainly I have to say, with regards to the Scouts anyway, because that's the only ones I can talk about, they are very enthusiastic and they know a lot more about recycling and caring and looking after the environment that I thought they would even begin to understand. So it's quite rewarding for leaders to be able to offer this kind of a program when they know they've already got people they're willing and happy to do it.
And what has the feedback been like from the Scouts themselves?
Well, the official launch only really happened last week.
Yes, last Monday.
But the information has been out to the Scout group since the start of September, I think we sent it out. So some groups have got well underway and some are sort of planning things for in the future. But I do know of various beaver colonies certainly that have started doing activities.
It must really bring together a sense of community, not only in the Scouts but in the local communities across the island.
Yeah, I mean, some of the activities, for example, Russian beavers I know took part in a beach clean with beach buddies, which obviously is all over the island doing great work. And they also did a noodle pick.
Yes.
Noodle pick as part of the project as well. So they had great fun being out and about doing that.
Well, what's a noodle pick? Could you expand on that?
My understanding is that it's the very tiny little pieces of plastic that get washed up. So it's actually picking up the really tiny pieces.
That was the beavers, yeah?
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic how it covers quite a range of age groups with the badge.
Yeah, I mean, we've designed it so that the leaders can choose something that is, appropriate to their particular section's age group. So an activity you do with the beavers probably wouldn't be the same that you do with the explorers, although certain things cross all borders. Something like a beach clean could be any of the sections.
So for older Scouts, are the activities more challenging?
Well, No, go on. Then.
Well, the activities really are down to what the leaders and the scouts themselves decide to do to achieve the actual goal. So really they've got the 17 global goals. They can decide which ones they want to have a go at and come up with some appropriate project to do that.
So it's quite independent work the Scouts take part in.
Well, yes. It's independent to the point of leaders watch over them, that it's obviously kept within the safety barriers, and but they come up with some really good ideas. I mean, I've been quite impressed with Castletown group, because they have come up with things I didn't actually think about, and like building from their plastic bottles, which they seem to get hundreds of, and I'm quite impressed actually the way they've taken this on board. So they're obviously enjoying it, which is half the fun, because Scouts is fun.
Yeah. Could you give any examples of what skills they build from this specific badge?
Well, that will depend obviously on the activity they're doing, but I think one of the main ones is teamwork, because for most of the activities they're going to be working within their group, their section. So teamwork is obviously one of the main ones. It could also be a sort of leadership developing skill for some of the older ones.
And what makes this badge so different to the other badges you have? Because I know the Scouts have a lot of badges.
Yeah, but you must remember that badges are not just a pretty piece of material. Badges are a constant reminder that that particular Scout has achieved something. And by wearing the badge, it reminds him that, or her, that they've achieved this particular standard. And they're quite high standards. They're never given away. They're always have to go into an extensive learning plan, if you like, and a development. And this is why this Biosphere badge is quite a good challenge, because it gives a lot of options, but you have to use a specific group within these particular projects. So it's made them use their imagination to widen, like we were saying about climate action. There is so much within that area that they can actually expand into with their thinking. And like I keep saying, I'm really impressed with their intelligence, and should we say their leadership. They come up with the most amazing ideas. This is the cub age, that's the age to 10 and a half or 10. And I mean, the Scouts are 10 and a half to 14, and well, they're just way ahead with their thinking. So it's quite easy for a leader, in so much as we're really there just overseeing their safety in some ways, or organising what it is they have said they want to do.
And is this Biosphere badge, is it applicable to other groups, or groups similar to Scouts, like Brownies and Girl Guiding?
Well, the particular badge that we've got is obviously just for Scouts. I think you've got a badge in front of you. There is actually the Scout emblem on that. I believe that the Guides have got a similar sort of badge, which presumably is a similar design with the Guide logo on it.
Yeah, Girl Guide.
Yeah.
What are your overall thoughts on the badge itself and what it actually brings?
Well, I think it's a great idea. I mean, we wouldn't have followed it up if we didn't think it was worthwhile doing. It's obviously doing a small bit towards the Biosphere project on the Isle of Man. And we just thought it was a valuable thing for Scouts to have a look at.
Do you think it helps encourage them to become more aware about the environment? And obviously there's been a lot in the news recently about climate change and all sorts of things to do with the environment.
Well, I think we're hearing such a lot about what's happening to our planet that the younger ones are hearing it as well. And I think our whole idea is to try to encourage them to be aware that it's up to us to change this situation. And I don't think that we can do it just on our own. So by already, should we say, programming, which is an awful comment, but program into the youth the idea that they have to come on board with the rest of us now, they will simply grow up with the idea that this is what's expected. It just becomes part of their life. Pick up the rubbish that drops, and just generally keep everything on a proper healthy level. We can't do anything about industry, but we can do things about our smaller contribution, a bit like dropping a stone in the ocean. It doesn't seem to make much of a difference, but the ripples do. And I think with the cubs and the scouts and the beavers and the explorers, the older ones, we can do a lot in the Isle of Man. There's nearly 1,000 of us, and in those groups, and I think that between us, we should make a difference.
Brilliant, thank you. One last question. I'm trying to think. Sorry. So obviously, has there been any stories of previous scouts going on to, after they've achieved certain badges, has that helped them with their career building?
I think we've obviously got scouts of all ages, and I think one of the most recent things that's probably significant to a small group on the island was the trip to the Jamboree in the USA. And I'm sure they really valued the fact that they were selected to go on that, and they enjoyed that. I don't know, but I would guess that it's the sort of thing that employers look at on CVs and take into account, you were involved in scouting, what skills have you developed, leadership, teamwork, etc. I'm sure that is a significant factor when people look at CVs for job applications.
Absolutely, and obviously being part of the Scouts makes that CV stand out, doesn't it, really?
Yes, I have had an example of the respect that the Scouts company or group or organisation rather has. Excuse me. You don't have to be a high academic to be a Scout. You have to be enthusiastic about outdoors and indoors and doing things, projects. And I had one particular young man who was a Scout at this stage, so he's between 10 and a half and 14. And when he he was never particularly good at any of the paperwork type of things that we did, but he was always hands-on when it came to doing the projects. When he come to leave, he went to go for a job he was quite handy with his hands, so he wanted to be a mechanic. I believe they call them technicians now. But he couldn't get a job. He went to all the places, tried everywhere. And I actually had a word with a friend of mine who had this rather large garage and said, would you have a word with him? Because he really is getting fed up with the fact that they look at the CV and it's not educationally high. It's okay, but it wasn't high. And I said, you would never find anybody more willing to work. So kind of reluctantly, he said, all right, I'll give him 6 months. Less than 6 months later, he called me and he said, do you know what? This is the best thing you've done for me. This lad is so good. And he's actually working with Ferraris and Lamborghinis now at this stage. He said, I don't bother with the small print and the maths and everything else. He said he's got a head on his shoulders, which is worth all of that. So it works, Scouts, because he was a Scout. It gave him the confidence to try, at least try, and it worked. So that was a really happy story with me.
Yes, absolutely. It sounds fantastic. I think we've covered everything, to be honest. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish?
Say again.
Yes, is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish that you've not already mentioned?
Well, I just did already mention we've got around about 1,000 in our groups. What we really could do with is more leaders, and I know this is a little bit of a plug, but we desperately do need more leaders, because we are all really wanting to the Scout group to grow even more, but at the present time we can't do that, and we've got waiting lists, big waiting lists, and so we really could do with the anybody over 18 who is willing to come and join us, and believe me, they will enjoy it, because we're a fun lot. And we do like to be active and interested in our younger generation. So if anybody has any will to come and join us, they can go on to the website or call the Commissioner, Guy Thompson, and I'm sure that they will look it up in the telephone book. The phone number is there. That's probably the easiest way to do it, and just leave a message if there's no answer. Mm-hmm. All right?
Yeah, and to be a leader, do you have to have been doing Scouts when you were younger, or can you just sign up?
Well, to be a leader, you obviously need to do the it's a paedophile check if the bottom line is read.
DBS check.
It obviously...
The DBS check.
Yeah, the DBS check
for
but
everybody.
That's what the DBS check is. Obviously, for safekeeping, we have to know there's no black mark against characters. You then have to do a low module 1 to 5, which you can actually do it online, but it does have to be checked. You do have to, and we have training officers, and then you have to have a meeting with a small committee who just discuss whether they consider you in the right role, and then you just take it from there. Eventually they will get invested, which is brought officially into the whichever group they're in, and well, I found that leaders usually end up going from stage to stage until, well, they get to Guy Thompson's stage as the island commissioner. So it's not a difficult process. It means giving a couple of hours a week to attend the meetings, and the age groups are there to suit yourselves, you know, like I said. They're 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 14, 14 to 18, and then you could go on to 25, become a young leader. So as far as leadership is concerned, from the 18-year-olds upwards, we could do with leaders. So please, this is an appeal.